Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. And another heavyweight news mashup video today, starting with Jarrell Miller, who's been in trouble with the law, arrested for burglary and carjacking. So he has put out a statement on his social media saying, first and foremost, thank you sincerely to my family, team, friends, and countless supporters from around the world who have been relentlessly lifted me in prayer since this unfortunate ordeal began. God gives the toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. Also extending a very special thanks to my trailblazing attorney, John Weeks, who says, after the facts are revealed, we are all confident he will be vindicated. I'm prayerful and look forward to a favourable resolution of this case. And that's Miller, not the lawyer. He says, praise be to Allah, Jarrell Big Baby Miller. So with his recent loss in this incident, hard to know what's sort of going to happen as the next chapter in the life of times of Jarrell Miller, who's really been on a roller coaster the last couple of years with PED-related troubles and trying to break his way back into heavyweight contention before being stopped by Daniel Dubois on a card in Saudi Arabia. So it's one of these things you almost couldn't script his life at this point. Whether there's anything in these burglary or carjacking charges, we shall see, but this is his statement, and his lawyer there, John Weeks, says they believe he will be vindicated. But I guess, if they've arrested him, there's got to be a little bit of smoke at least. Obviously, the story says it was carjacking and burglary with assault or battery. So maybe he put hands on someone. I guess the facts of the matter will come out and he'll get his day in court. Joseph Parker has told New Zealand media that they'll have to look elsewhere now that Anthony Joshua is not available to fight next. And New Zealand media in different articles have talked up the prospect of that potential rematch, although I think that's being more hopeful really than being realistic, as that fight was never probably going to be likely next anyway. I mean, I think one of the things with that fight back in 2018 that people forget, the one thing people will say is, well, there was the referee breaking up the clinch and all that sort of stuff too soon. But that was one of the most dour heavyweight fights in recent memory in terms of a title fight. And there wasn't a lot of action. Both guys were super cautious, and both guys, didn't really want to let their hands go too much. And Parker only sort of started to do so later in the fight. And even then, he wasn't having much success. And that was a pretty clear-cut decision in the end to Joshua. But he feels he deserves a rematch after that win over Deontay Wilder. But Joshua and his camp, it always looked likely that they had other fish to fry. And they're going after Francis Ngannou in March. That is on a Saudi Arabian card. And Parker has said that he's hoping to get on that one. But his management is talking the likes of potentially Zhang Zhilei, Filip Hrgović, and potentially Andy Ruiz Jr. And I guess Andy Ruiz Jr., having been beaten narrowly by Parker at the end of 2016, and he was in Saudi Arabia for the most recent Day of Reckoning event, so his foot potentially is in the door to get on a card. And I think from seeing him recently, he looks like he's keeping himself in better shape, and I wouldn't mind seeing that rematch over Parker. I'd rather see Ruiz Parker or Joyce Parker before I'd rather see Joshua Parker, if that makes sense. I know that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and some people feel the referee did Parker dirty in that fight, but that also sort of doesn't touch on the element that Joseph Parker doesn't really have an inside game, and when he got to the inside against Joshua, he did nothing before being broken up, obviously. But in terms of Parker, who's in Samoa on holiday, he's saying that he's going to be back in camp. He said, I've had discussions that there could be a fight in March, but until there is something concrete or an opponent locked in, it's just training to stay in shape and training to stay prepared. And training to stay prepared obviously helped Parker in 2023. He was active. He had, the 4 fights in the end. You had Whainga Opilu, Jack Massey, which was at the start of 2023. It was a terrible fight. That feels so long ago. He also had a fight with Simon Keane and then obviously against Deontay Wilder. So he started the year off in 2023 with a pretty forgettable fight and ended it with a career-defining victory at this stage of his career, beating Deontay Wilder. But he has touched on that fight between Joshua and Ngannou, saying, "I'm really happy that Francis Ngannou got the fight. He's a nice man and works hard. I'm interested to see what Joshua can do with him. Francis put on a great fight against Tyson, and Tyson put in perhaps his not greatest performance." And just briefly, he touches on goal setting. "The ultimate is to win the world title, and that's Joshua's goal as well. I've won it before when I was 24 years old, and maybe I was too young and didn't know how to be a world champ. I would love the opportunity to fight for the championship of the world again, and this time it would be different if I was to win it again. I'm going to hold it on for as long as I can and do everything right. The only way I can corner Joshua and get him is by winning. I have to win in a good fashion and show that I can give more to the heavyweight division. If I can keep winning and looking good doing so, then eventually our paths will cross again." And I think that's the important part too. It's not just winning, it's also winning well, because that builds interest in bigger and better fights and builds the hype towards those fights being made. At the moment, after being basically given an opportunity to face Wilder out of nowhere by the Saudis, getting paid a boatload of money to do so, he made that fight his, and he got the result that he wanted, and it's a springboard potentially to bigger and better fights potentially. Maybe he can get Joshua down the road, but it's probably at least 1 or 2 fights away if we're being realistic. But someone who is open to facing Joseph Parker is Zhang Zhilei. So he says, "I want to come back during March, and that's the plan. But if you're asking me who I want the next opponent to be, realistically, then I say Joseph Parker. But does he dare fight me? I'm open to everything, but I'm focusing on the gym and being in the ring for my return. I would like to have my next fight to be in Saudi Arabia, but everything is being worked on and is in the process. I can't say too much about it." His advisor and manager Terry Lane has recently said they're trying to get him on a card in Saudi Arabia. And I guess the thing is, with all the top contenders right now, they need to be in the gym and working hard and staying ready, because they could get that call at 1 or 2 weeks' notice, and if they're in good condition, it's going to help them if they end up on the card. Whereas someone like Miller, Jarrell Miller, he obviously turned up way out of shape, and that didn't help him against Daniel Dubois. Although Daniel Dubois may still have beaten him, given Jarrell Miller supposedly was clean for that one. Miller gassed after 6, but the extra rubble didn't help him. But I think the key at the moment for the heavyweight division, people need to be staying busy. And Zhang has also weighed in on Tyson Fury, his most recent fight with Francis Ngannou, and he says the Francis Ngannou fight should be a wake-up call for Tyson Fury. You have to train hard and focus on the gym, but you never know. Everyone is different. But I can tell you, if he prepares the same way he did against Francis Ngannou, then he is going to be in big trouble and big danger. And he's speaking of Alexander Usyk there, Fury's upcoming opponent. And Zhang says, "Right now I'm leaning towards Usyk to winning this fight, as I believe skills pay the bills and dedication is the key to the sport of boxing." Joyce is looking to be also coming back in March, but probably not on a Saudi Arabia card. So you can see this post, which has gone up on a social media via SJAM Boxing, which is his management company. "I'm looking to be back early March. There's a couple of names we're looking to go with. It'll be nice to get a win on home turf and then start looking at these serious fights." And obviously with back-to-back losses to Zhang Zhilei, getting stopped pretty brutally in the rematch, Joyce needs to probably have a confidence builder, get rid of a little bit of rust, get that confidence back up and then back out there. And I think Joyce, which was he 38 years old, at this point, if he can sort of shake off any confidence issues, get a little bit of confidence going in this tune-up that he's hoping for in March, he could potentially be in some Saudi cards later in the year if they continue to occur. And Joyce, depending on matchups, as we've seen, his fight with Joseph Parker and others like Carlos Takam, certain styles for him work, but someone who's got a lot of pop, can crack that chin like a Zhang Zhilei. We'll have to see. I think styles make fights and matchups in terms of how much power and other things is going to be crucial for him, the matchmaking. And Joyce, he has also weighed in on the recent Day of Reckoning card. And this was good to see, because sometimes you have fighters claiming that they haven't watched fights or different cards and sort of claiming that they've got no interest in it, which sometimes to me feels like you're not doing your homework, or maybe they're being disingenuous and don't want to say, well, they missed out on getting a fight and they were sitting at home watching it on their TV, but they don't want to reveal that. But he says, it was a great night to watch the boxing. I stayed in and watched it. It was good. There were big heavyweight fights, some good light heavyweight fights too that I watched, and there were some good upsets. With Joseph Parker and Deontay Wilder, I thought Joseph Parker was a good boxer and would give him trouble, but I thought Wilder may have a big shot in there in round 10, but he got completely battered and convincingly beat against Parker. And when he was asked if he'd like to see Parker against Daniel Dubois, which I think is an interesting matchup, one potentially could be made for Saudi Arabia in March, given Dubois' recent win and Parker's recent win on the same card, he says that would be interesting. And then I fight the winner, but there's plenty of other big fights. It'd be a good fight to get me back in there, but I'm just focusing on getting a win before I look too far ahead on what's on offer. The boxer promoter Ben Shalom believes that Martin Bakole and Anthony Joshua could be a fight that could be made via an order from the WBA. So he says the WBA may order a final eliminator and we are waiting on direction from them. And this is Shalom talking to Sky Sports. He says the aim is for Martin to fight early in the year and continue his impressive run. I'm looking forward to seeing him fully fit and when he will look even more devastating. Of course, Anthony Joshua is number 2 in the WBA rankings, and so it would make sense that the fight would be ordered, and Martin would be ready. Martin remains the most avoided heavyweight in the world, and his recent performances only added to that. We're looking forward to a big year for Martin, who will inevitably fight for world titles in the not-so-distant future. Francis Ngannou is training with the Italian heavyweight Guido Vianello, and their sparring is taking place in Paris. So Ngannou is preparing for Anthony Joshua. That fight will be in a couple of months in Saudi Arabia. Vianello, not sure what he is doing next. He's still with Top Rank, but it kind of feels like one more loss for him or a mediocre performance, he could be out of the tent. So good work for him too with Francis Ngannou. Agit Kabayel says he believes Anthony Joshua is a good fight for him and that he's ready for it should that fight occur. And this is something Kabayel's been a bit guilty of in recent years, calling out the big names, not really being prepared to fight anyone else. That Saudi Arabian card was a different story. He fights Makhmudov. Basically, the money was there to get him to sign his name to the contract, and he's come out a huge winner against Makhmudov from December 2023 on the Day of Reckoning, battered him to the body. And he says of Anthony Joshua, he fought very good. Maybe AJ is back. I give him respect for the fight. If the fight comes, then I'm ready for the fight. I'm ready for the big challenge. AJ is a big name. When the fight comes, I'm ready. We are ready for the fight. I think the thing is, given Kabayel kind of drifted off the radar, only fighting once a year for a number of years, and generally not great opposition, fighting out of sight, out of mind in Germany, sometimes, likes of a Kevin Johnson fight or a Pavel Sau and be his only lot for the year. It is a situation he needs to probably have another good win or two, but that Saudi card gave him the springboard, and he's now rated in the Ring top 10 rankings as a result. He needs to back it up and fight another decent name. Someone like Frank Sanchez, someone from those cards, one of those cards in Saudi Arabia, Martin Bakole. What about Daniel Dubois? There is some names, and he's legitimized his career again after that Derek Chisora win back in 2017. It feels so long ago, and he never really capitalized on the momentum. He was happy to just roll himself out once a year and basically call out the big names until something happened. Finally, something happened by way of Saudi Arabia giving him an opportunity, and he needs to make the most of it and not just sit on his laurels now. Well, that's just my opinion. Gurgen Hovhannisyan has returned. This was January the 4th. He was fighting on a card against Colby Madison. So Hovhannisyan, who's a good heavyweight prospect out of Armenia, 6'7", had a good fight with Michael Polite Coffey all the way back in 2022 now. Sat out in 2023. He was scheduled for a fight in the first half of the year but got injured. So he came back against Madison, a bit rusty, ultimately stopping him in the 5th round. And someone from the crowd has posted this to social media. here, and tagged in Hovhannisyan, so you can see this is the end of the fight, just showing it in slow motion. So Hovhannisyan, he's an interesting prospect given the size and also the hand speed. So we'll have to see what happens with him. He was fighting on some PBC cards. This was a non-PBC card, but I guess with PBC not having started their deal with Prime, the Fox cards having ended a year ago and Showtime having ended, he had to go somewhere. So the return of Gurgen Hovhannisyan, hopefully we see a lot more of him in 2024 because he is a good prospect and one to watch. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.